Hello everybody, welcome Year 12 Sociology to your lesson today. So before we begin, I just want to have a quick overview of the specification. So this is Component 3, Section A, Globalisation and the Digital Social World. So we're still focusing on here the key question of number 1, what is the relationship between globalisation and digital forms of communication? And we have done this. We have defined globalisation and we are aware of the problems. We've looked at all of these lovely snazzy key terms. As we know, key terms are really, really important, and we've linked them into the idea of social capital. Last lesson was on Marxism, and that means today we are focusing on feminism. So, can you remember what were the 3 big ideas from Marxism? So, it's going to be your starter activity first of all. If you need to hit pause while you quickly write them down or recap in your head what they are, please do so now. Wicked, brilliant. So, you've gone over them. Let's go through them and make sure that you've got them all. Oh yeah, and of course we're doing feminism. I had to put that there. Okay, so starter feedback. Number 1, digital forms of communication is a new tool in the ideological state apparatus, backed up by Cornford and Robbins, and also the theory of excessive time. You should be confident with that. You should know that. If you don't know that, go over it and revise it. Number 2, digital forms of communication encourage passive acceptance, so exploitation continues. We've got 3 key things to back that up there with the idea of media convergence, Ralph Miliband with the new opium of the people, and of course Rupert Murdoch. Number 3, we've got digital forms of communication is used to control and use as surveillance. When we looked at the Edward Snowden report, who was the whistleblower, and the lack of laws that there are on the use of data. And we had a quick convo, didn't we, about Twitter. So our learning goal today is that we're going to assess feminist explanations of digital forms of communication. And I have broken down your learning objectives. Now, guys, it's really, really important, especially because you're learning from home, that you choose the learning objective that you feel confident and comfortable with. As an educator and as a professional teacher, I know that not all learners are the same. Some learners will be able to read this, go through it really, really quickly, going for A grades, yeah, and that's fine. Other learners, it might take a bit longer to process, to read it, to understand, and might be going for the C grade. Again, that is absolutely fine. But that means when it comes to your learning objectives and your goals, you're going to have different ones, okay? So the content is the same, but what you produce might be different. And it's really important that you are remembering that and you're not beating yourself up. So all of you, this is the absolute basics, that all of you must be able to do this, to identify 3 key feminist arguments and then to judge which one of those offers the most convincing explanation. Most of you might be able to do this, to explain 3 key feminist arguments and then to compare them with Marx's explanations from last lesson. And some of you, this is like the stretch and challenge the A grades, to assess the 3 key feminist arguments. Sorry, ring doorbell. And to appraise their worth when compared to Marxist explanations. So as you can see, guys, all you've got to identify, which is an easier thing to do than compared to most, which is to explain. And then the hardest thing to do is to assess them, okay? So you choose the one that you feel confident doing. If you're having a rubbish day, you normally, A grade, and you're just feeling a bit under the weather, it's all right, go for the learning objective for all. Or vice versa, if you're like, no, I'm getting comfortable with home learning now. Because normally, guys, in lesson time, we all do the last one, the stretch and challenge one. We all do it. I get you there. But I understand, obviously, from home, it could be really difficult to do that. So, be kind to yourself, listen to what you need as the learner and go for it. Okay, so we're going to be looking at this question here. So digital social communication has reduced social inequality, and you need to evaluate that point of view worth 16 marks. Now, social inequality, guys, that could therefore be linking into Marxist viewpoints or feminist viewpoints, or well, yeah, you would argue it from that to agree, or no, you would disagree with that, because that question is saying that mobile phones have reduced inequality. And of course, feminist Marxists completely disagree with that. And it will be postmodernists that agree with that. And we'll be looking at that tomorrow. So anywho, what do feminists say? So number one, they say that digital forms of communication actually provide new ways to exploit women and children. We're going to be backing that up with those two studies. Second point is that they extend patriarchal ideology through imagery and representation of women. You could probably chuck in a bit of Laura Mulvey in there, the male gaze. And then number three, companies are perceived to be masculine and women therefore play a secondary role. So really kind of looking at the gender differentiation between those who are working in this sector. Okay, so let's crack on with the first key argument. So you've opened up your exam paper, and I don't know, the exam question could be the one about social inequality, so you're going to go straight down the feminist route. Always start off with what type of theory is feminism. Can you please tell me what type of theory feminism is? Brilliant, well done. It is macro, structuralist and conflict. Good. Remember, macro meaning that it takes a wide approach looking at society as a whole. And it's a large scale study. Conflict means that they believe that society is in disagreement with one another and we want to make it better. We want to get rid of the disagreement, which is hinged upon patriarchy, male dominance. And then the structuralist theory is the fact that we look at the way that social structures and institutions like the workplace, like the media, like education and like the family impact us as human beings. Yeah? Okay, so first key argument, the DSC provides new ways to exploit women and children. So Al-Akai led the United Nations fight against organised crime and stated that exploitation has been the most undesirable consequence of globalisation and a human rights disaster. That is a strong thing to say. Why? So national boundaries are less significant and the illegal movement such as human trafficking has become easier to coordinate. So if you look on the right hand side, I've got a little picture here for you. We're talking about modern day slavery here. And I'm sorry, warning, we're going to go doom and gloom. Sex trade, human trafficking, which is basically selling women into prostitution. And of course, we are feminists today, and therefore we are, upholding the rights of women. If we look at it like forced labour victims as well, so we could be looking at sweatshops. Where people are being basically made to work for free. And well, they don't think it's free. They think, because I've got now a roof over my head and I'm being fed food, I'm being paid. And of course, you're not being paid at all. Because normally it's an absolute dump that you're staying in. You have to stay there against your own will, and you can't have any time off. You don't have any freedom. So if you turn to page 13 of your textbook, you will be able to see more. And by all means, Google United Nations and the sociologist. Okay, second key thing we can say is child exploitation online protections. This is known as CEOP. So from 2012-2013, and CEOP, is an online organisation set up to protect children from grooming, from sexual images, predators asking for sexual images of them. CEOP played a key role in the investigation of the disappearance of Madeleine McCann. So again, really looking at women and children. So sorry, from 2012 to 2013, there was 18,887 reports of child sexual exploitation, 2,866 intel reports from overseas law enforcement of involvement in child sexual abuse. Can't think about it too much, guys. It makes me feel upset. Putting a boundary there, Miss Marable. Yeah, that's god awful, isn't it? Really, really, really awful. So if we look back at that question, I've got it at the top of the slides there. Digital social communication has reduced social inequality. No, it hasn't. Instead, it has actually facilitated the exploitation of children and women. And you say, for example, CEOP found in 20, and then that's how you would use that statistic, and then you back that up with your explanation. Therefore, as a result, or therefore this shows that social inequality has been heightened, and people have been made more vulnerable to predators because we're in an online digital realm. In previous years, you would be safe from the walls that surround you in your home. But when you're on your mobile telephone, due to media convergence, you are now you're easily accessible. So yeah, that's the line that I would go down. Now, is that strong? Is that a weak argument? What do you think? Do you think this is a convincing argument that digital social communication has actually increased social inequality, or do you think there's any flaws there? Now, this is up to you, and this is how you argue it, and that's how you get to the A grade. Draw upon things that you've experienced within society and what you've read in the press. So I have said this. So I'm offering my AO3. This is a critique of the feminist approach. So yeah, we have got issues. However, there is a positive. So women are now able to utilise digital communication to mobilise support for activities which challenge patriarchal practices and ideology. So yeah, okay, at the same time, if we go back to Alakai, who said that, it's their biggest thing, which has created an issue, a human rights disaster, I would actually argue, what about female genital mutilation? We are now able to understand that and share people's experiences a lot more due to having YouTube and video access, and I'm able, to record this video to speak with you all now. So really, you can have that debate. So therefore that is a weakness of it, okay? And now an example of this can be Tech Against Trafficking. Now they are a coalition of technology companies collaborating with global experts to help eradicate human trafficking using technology. Now 3 core strategies: information sharing, research and tech solutions, and I've included a web link to their website. Have a look, guys. Have a look. You're sociologists. Okay, second key argument. The DFC, digital forms of communication, extend patriarchal ideology through imagery and representation of women. Oh, right. I'm going to talk about OnlyFans. Have you heard of OnlyFans? OnlyFans, I know I've kind of spoken about it a little bit before, but it's basically like a DIY porn hub. So it is an app on your phone. You take photos of yourself in your underwear. You then post it onto this OnlyFans account, and then people can pay you money to see your selfies and stuff like that. Some women may actually argue, yeah, this is great, this is empowering, and others, however, will know it's just, adding to, the exploitation of women's bodies. How are we ever meant to be seen as equals when men are paying to look at your body parts? It's just, you're not going to be taken seriously, are you? So OnlyFans would be a good example of a contemporary example that you could use in your examinations. So Hughes in 1999 found that types of sexual exploitation of women on the internet were the following: bride trafficking. So that is, women being sold online as brides to husbands, and of course then they're basically like an in-house slave. Second thing is sex tourism. So websites kind of promoting where you can go in the world to buy sex. To essentially buy women to have sex with, and there's very, very little risk of any kind of punishment from law enforcement. You might be thinking of Amsterdam. I know everyone's a bit like, "Way Amsterdam, red light district, blah, blah." I understand it's all kind of, laddish or, freedom of sexuality and stuff like that. But then at the same time, again, you need to be asking those questions. Well, why are those women there? How did they end up doing that kind of line of work? It's still kind of exploitation. And then, websites and, maybe travel vlogs promoting these places, just increasing, the exploitation of women. Prostitution and live sex shows. So again, the media, the digital communication that we have, it's all just facilitating this kind of behaviour. which of course is seen by many feminists as derogatory. But I do understand that some feminists would go, no, ooh, yeah, we're getting our body out. Okay, next one is objectification. So women are regarded as objects without feelings, dignity or rights due to increased easy access to images. Sexualized violence is seen as the norm. Revenge porn. I know we've spoken about revenge porn before, but if you don't know, you're going out with a guy, you send him a topless photo, you then break up with the guy, and now he uses that against you. You know, you can't break up with me, otherwise I'm going to post your boobs all over the internet. So yeah, that's terrible, and that's all again all being facilitated by our media convergence. AO3, let's critique it. But no, on the other hand, well, yeah, it happens, but you can actually use the internet for women to share their experiences, raising awareness of sexual objectification, and actually educating people about it. So Laura Bates, and you can see this image here on the right hand side, she started a website called Everyday Sexism, and basically she wanted women to post their experiences of sexual harassment in the streets. So I remember, guys, walking home from school in my school uniform, and men in vans beeping their hooters, beep beep beep, why? I was a child, yeah, I was 15, could have been 14, and I'd grown men bibbing at me, saying how pretty and attractive that I looked. Now, thankfully, that does not happen anymore. Well, it could be that I've lost my looks, I don't know. But I don't hear any beeping, or, you know, the fact that obviously it's become a crime to do that. It is sexual harassment, and especially, you know, we think about girls in uniforms as well, you know, it's paedophilia. So yeah, so this is actually a positive thing that we can say from digital forms of communication, that women can actually come together now and share their experiences, and therefore raising awareness and ending the discrimination. Woo woo! Again, Google Laura Bates, see what she's all about. Okay, third key argument: digital forms of communication companies are perceived still to be very masculine. So on the whole, social media companies are designed by men. Think of you know, the owner of Twitter, owner of Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg. And women play a secondary role. And so you look at Cooper. Cooper says that women represent only 1/5 of IT managers, 21% of computer analysts, and 14% of software professionals. Therefore, you know, even though we are so glued to our devices, and it's actually statistically shown that women spend more time on social media such as Instagram and Facebook than men do. Men seem to spend more time using social media for professional purposes, like using websites like LinkedIn and using Facebook in a professional way. As ladies, unfortunately, kind of conforming to a stereotype, we like to take photos of the cakes and our babies and flowers and things like that, which, you know, I'm guilty. I bake cakes and then I post loads of pictures of them. Guilty. Haraway. So Haraway had written a book, Cyborg Manifesto, Science, Technology and Socialist Feminism in the late 20th century. So Haraway argues that advances in technology actually offer women a way to become empowered, and she calls this cyborgs. So women, these have empowered us, and we're able to create this kind of online identity which is seen as a cyborg. So we're human, but we also have this online presence as well. Because, you know, if we're looking at YouTubers, so yeah, part tech, part human, and this therefore allows us to transcend gender-bound identities. If I wanted to, I could pretend that my name is Derek and I'm a man, or I could say that, you know, I'm Alex, and that could be male or female, and I could actually remove gender completely and become quite gender fluid. And therefore, if we look at patriarchy, as soon as you remove the gender differentiations, you're disempowering patriarchy, aren't you? So Haraway really promotes this idea that women need to be using technology in a way that gets rid of gender. Get rid of it. Get rid of it. So women cannot be essentialized. So sharing something essentially similar about what it means to be a woman. Women must become involved with tech advances and then not to be ignored. Let's critique it. Yes, you've got a point, Haraway. However, cyborgs. Oh, I do apologise. Sorry, it's Friday afternoon that I'm doing this. It's been a long week. Cyborgs have become sexualized and part of a patriarchal ideology. So if you look at the film, this is an insert of a press article I found. There's a film called Ex Machina. And it's just one example of a sci-fi film, which is about cyborgs and technology and robots. And, you know, they make the robots sexy and they make women sexy. And, yeah, okay, so we can say this is all really, really good. You know, we should embrace this, but we're still kind of getting tied down to the ideas of maybe sexual objectification. And I have a video link here for you to watch. Okay, guys, that brings us to the end of our lesson. Let's do a learning check, a learning goal check. Have you met your learning goal? So we needed to assess feminist explanations of digital forms of communication. So have you identified 3 key feminist arguments with your 2 pieces of evidence to back it up, and then to judge which offers the most convincing? So we need to now look at those 3 key arguments. Which do you think is the most convincing to explain the phenomenon of digital forms of communication? Or have you been able to actually explain things in depth and then compare it with Marx's explanations? Actually look at Marxism, look at feminism, and decide which you think makes the most sense. And then some to assess them. So you're really unpicking them. And basically, I was doing that, guys, in the video where I was saying this is the argument, strength, weakness. And appraise their worth and then comparing it to Marx's explanations. That's a harder thing to do. Okay, so these are the 2 exam questions I want you to answer, as well as making your own notes. So explain how developments in digital communication might encourage patriarchy. 9 marks. That's just literally study, study, study. And then number 2, evaluate the feminist view that global advances in digital communication have had a negative effect on members of society. And I want to take a feminist viewpoint on that. Okay, if you need any help, back to our learning goal, make sure that you are comfortable with those things. Lovely. So, guys, if you've got any questions, please let me know. Other than that, I will see you tomorrow.